I charged into the ruined hall, my pulse pounding as I faced my former foe, the man who once shattered our family, and now stood before me as the reluctant key to our bond's restoration, each heartbeat laced with raw fury and the weight of impossible, desperate choices. In that incendiary moment, I tore down the final barrier of my hardened past and ignited the spark for a reconciliation ceremony, sealing my fate with a single, irrevocable decision. Chapter 1. Old Grudges and New Beginnings. The soft hum of the city outside the high-rise mirrored the quiet turbulence inside Emilia's mind. As she sat in the sleek conference room, her fingers drummed nervously against the polished oak table. Every measured beat of her heart echoed the memories of a childhood shadowed by family feuds, a time when each whispered slight had hardened her spirit and set the course for the rest of her life. Now, facing the man who had once been her fiercest adversary, Emilia felt a surge of conflicted emotion. Her internal monologue, as always, was both an armor and a window into her vulnerabilities. How did it come to this? She wondered silently, analyzing every detail of the man sitting diagonally across from her. Marcus had a way of looking directly through her guarded exterior, a gaze that both challenged and strangely intrigued her. His eyes, lined with the memories of similar battles, held a mixture of determination and something softer, something that hinted at a past where grudges had once been all-consuming. The meeting was ostensibly about renewing a high-stakes partnership that promised to mend old family ties. Yet the atmosphere was charged with history. As the discussion began, Emilia's voice, firm yet edged with a note of lingering hurt, broke the silence. "Marcus, it feels as though we're trying to rebuild a bridge that was burned years ago," she said, carefully choosing her words. Her tone mixed resolve with a trace of caution, not because she doubted their shared goal, but because old wounds had a notorious way of reopening if one wasn't vigilant. Marcus leaned forward, his expression a battle of calculated politeness and genuine remorse. "Emilia, I understand your hesitation. I never imagined that reviving this partnership would dredge up so many painful memories. But perhaps there's more to it than simply revisiting our past mistakes. There's a possibility of transformation, even reconciliation, with both our families." His voice was calm, carrying an undercurrent of sincerity that struck a chord deep within her. As their dialogue unfolded, every sentence was laced with the echoes of past conflicts. At one moment, the conversation veered towards the specifics of business logistics. At another, an old personal slight surfaced subtly beneath their formal exchanges. Emilia recalled, with both bitterness and an odd nostalgia, the night spent stewing over family betrayals, a tapestry of anger and heartbreak. Yet now, amidst the crisp professionalism of the meeting, there was an unmistakable spark of something new. It was as if each carefully measured remark, each pointed question, was not merely an adversarial duel, but a reluctant dance toward understanding. Emilia found herself torn. Her scarred past screamed caution, insisting that every personal detail should remain locked away, yet the moment was punctuated by an undeniable and complicated attraction to the man with whom she'd once waged war. When Marcus briefly allowed his tone to soften as he mentioned the possibility of a restored family bond, a dream she had long nurtured silently, the tension in the room transformed. The cold distance between them melted for an instant. "Maybe," he continued, almost as if speaking to himself, "the future we build doesn't have to be defined solely by our past. Perhaps we can both finally lay down our burdens." It was in that moment Emilia caught a glimpse of the man behind the rivalry, vulnerable, haunted by memories of his own familial losses, yet daring to believe in change. His words, like tentative brushstrokes over a long-forgotten canvas, invited her to consider the beauty of transformation without completely erasing the scars that narrated her past. "I've spent so long fighting against what I thought defined me," Emilia admitted quietly, her eyes not leaving his. "Now it seems the only path left is through all that pain to find something new, something better." Her confession, barely more than a whisper, was both a declaration and an invitation, a willingness to challenge fate even now. The conversation drifted into practical logistics and strategic planning, but the undercurrent of their personal history remained unignorable. In a moment that felt as fleeting as it was profound, a shared glance conveyed more than words ever could, both a cautious curiosity and a yearning for a future free from the shadows of old grudges. Were they really ready to consider a new beginning, where past enmity could be transformed into something powerful, even unanticipated? That spark of unspoken mutual attraction danced dangerously close to hope, and in that dangerous space lay the seeds of transformation. As the meeting drew to a close, with both parties agreeing to postpone their final decisions until further explorations into the partnership's terms, Emilia gathered her belongings with a lingering glance at Marcus. There, in the reflective surface of the conference table, she saw the faint outline of her own conflicted face, a canvas split by the fractures of unhealed pain and the promising glow of redemption. She left the room with a mind whirling with doubts and desires, aware that each step forward would be a delicate dance between holding on to old grudges and embracing the uncertain promise of new beginnings. Walking away from the meeting, Emilia couldn't shake the feeling that this was only a prelude to a much deeper journey. It left her with a tantalizing question. Could the remnants of their shared past truly be the foundation for a brighter, uncharted future? Chapter 2. Colliding Paths and Unlikely Alliances. The morning light crept into the community center, marking the start of a project meant to bridge families divided by grudges. Emma recalled how she once saw her rival, Lucas, as everything she despised. Now fate had forced them to collaborate, tension simmering as they reviewed plans and timelines. During a break, Emma found solace in the quiet library, reflecting on her insecurities. Lucas approached with a tentative smile, his vulnerability showing. "I know it's not easy, Emma," he said softly. "We're reminded that behind every family dispute, there's deep pain." His words pierced through their shared history of confrontation. Emma's defensiveness softened into a wry smile. "Even the fiercest rivals can unite to heal old wounds," she replied, surprising them both with her sincerity. As they worked, drafting family trees and contacting estranged relatives, they realized it wasn't just about reuniting families, but also mending their own hearts. Their partnership slowly peeled back layers of animosity. Each meeting revealed shared wounds and regrets. Emma saw Lucas as more than a rival. He was a man burdened by loneliness. Lucas discovered Emma's fierce drive masked a yearning for understanding. A pivotal moment came one late afternoon after hours of work. Alone in an empty conference room, they confessed personal failures. "I used to think confrontation was the only way to win," Lucas admitted. "But yielding isn't defeat, it's understanding." Emma's eyes shimmered with her own insecurities. "Maybe we're stronger when we're vulnerable," she whispered, promising change. In that charged silence, barriers dissolved. Healing required trust, and trust often came with passion. They shared a brief, hesitant kiss, a soft acknowledgement of shared truth. Healing was an unexpected alliance. Afterward, their dynamic shifted. Conversations grew nuanced, revealing strengths and vulnerabilities. Reuniting families became personal redemption and self-forgiveness. Emma reflected on the kiss, fueling her determination. Lucas planned to mend hearts, starting with his own. In the collision of past grievances and present needs, transformation began. Challenges remained, but hope took root. Emma and Lucas embraced the possibility of change, their journey just beginning, with a bright, hopeful future ahead. Chapter 3. Barriers Shattered by Truth. Night had draped itself over the city, like a heavy veil, as the two souls sat across from one another in the quiet sanctuary of the back room. What began as tentative exchanges over the blueprints of their joint project had evolved into something far more charged, a raw confrontation with the parts of themselves they had long kept hidden. The air was thick with unspoken words, and finally, the dam of suppressed pain broke. It started with a single, tremulous admission. She, whose calm resolve usually belied the storms of her past, challenged him. "How can we move forward when the shadows of old rivalries and family histories still fudge our every step?" Her voice, laced with hurt and indignation, echoed against the faded walls. In that moment, every slight miscommunication and every stinging rejection they had endured culminated into a fevered need to be heard. He stared into her eyes that held centuries of unvoiced sorrow and relentless determination, and found himself compelled to meet her gaze fully. For too long, he had clung to the defenses built around him, hardened by years of conflict with his own family and the misunderstandings that had marred his relationship with her. "You think I haven't felt the weight of it all," he retorted, his voice cracking with the intensity of pent-up grief. Every day, I've woken to memories of being let down by those I once trusted, of watching my family tear itself apart over petty disagreements. The room buzzed with the electric charge of their mutual pain. As the argument escalated, their voices intertwined with a fragile melody of vulnerability and regret. Each revelation was a shard of broken glass being laid bare, memories of childhood betrayals, unhealed wounds from past feuds, and a bitter residue left by misunderstandings. She recalled the nights of desperate solitude after family gatherings had fractured into unforgiving accusations. He spoke of cold silences after heated declarations of misguided loyalty. In this raw exchange, the project that had brought them together now became the mirror reflecting their internal battles. Amid their impassioned outpouring, an innocuous moment occurred, a pause so profound that even the ticking clock on the wall seemed to still its beat. It was then that the echoes of their initial confrontation whispered back the memory of a single tentative kiss, a kiss that had once kindled a fragile promise, now serving as the fragile bridge between their wounded souls. That kiss, which had once been an escape from the tyrannies of their personal demons, was about to evolve into something more profound. In a surge of emotion, she reached out, her trembling hand brushing against his. The physical touch was electric, dissolving the barriers they had so carefully erected. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she murmured, her voice scarcely above a whisper now, half apology, half confession. Her words shed the armor of indignation, bearing her fears of not only personal failure, but also the deep-seated longing to be understood, accepted. Within her vulnerability lay the truth of her own scars inflicted by generations of rivalry that had seeped into every fiber of her being. He, equally undone by the force of her honesty, let go of his usual reticence. "I've been so blinded by the need to protect myself, to shield my heart from the wounds that seem always ready to reopen," he confessed, his tone soft and laden with remorse. The fierce glare that once animated his eyes melted away, making way for an expression of genuine sorrow and hope. Every word built upon the last, until a solid wall of truth replaced the chaos of miscommunication. They found themselves no longer in a heated argument, but in a moment of staggering, transformative agreement. It was as if the intensity of squabbles had crumbled under the weight of their shared suffering. In that fragile, suspended moment, the rift between them began to heal. A tentative forgiveness, born not just out of desire, but out of understanding, emerged between the sparks of former enmity. The room that had witnessed so much passion and pain now became a crucible of transformation. The kiss they shared moments before was no longer just an expression of fleeting attraction or defiant intimacy. It had grown into a pledge of mutual healing. Their lips met again, this time with a depth that resonated with every secret they had bared to the other. It was a kiss laced with the promise of renewal, a promise that the walls built on old grievances could finally come down. As the intensity of their revelations receded, an unspoken clarity filled the space between them. The confrontation gave way to a new understanding. The recognition that the vicious circles of past mistakes and family conflicts could be broken by the honesty and vulnerability they had embraced. In each other's eyes, they not only saw the pain of the past, but a shared vision for a future where old defenses no longer dominated their choices. The transformation was both subtle and profound, a turning point that carried with it the hope of genuine love emerging from the ruins of old rivalries. The night stretched on, embracing them in its quiet arms as they began to discuss, tentatively, how to move forward. With raw truths now spoken aloud, they knew that what lay ahead was a path fraught with challenges, yet illuminated by the possibility of lasting change. Their journey was far from over, but the barriers that had once seemed insurmountable were now shattering in the glow of truth and reconciliation. Chapter 4. The Reconciliation Ceremony. The late afternoon sun bathed the gathering in a gentle, forgiving glow as both families assembled in the spacious courtyard behind the old manor, a fitting stage for a ceremony that promised to bridge years of strife. Today, old rivalries were set aside, and the once distant hearts of wounded kin converged to heal notes of bitterness through words of contrition and acts of grace. The air was filled with both solemn reflection and a palpable sense of hope, a duality that resonated deeply within the protagonist Elena, whose own journey mirrored the evening's unfolding drama. As the ceremony commenced, members of both families took their places on a series of hand-painted steps, each amendment to the architecture a subtle testament to a long, painful history, now being reassessed through the lens of forgiveness. Elena stepped forward to deliver the opening speech. Her voice, though quivering with the weight of years past, slowly gained strength and clarity as she recalled memories not solely of sadness, but of shared moments that had once united these kindred souls. She invoked the idea that every scar earned could and should transform into a seal of survival. In that brief but poignant address, she encouraged both clans to see each other not as adversaries, but as survivors of misfortune, bound by a common desire for renewal. Among the murmurs and murmured nods of concession, her love interest, Adrian, made his own quiet declaration. His words, simple, sincere, and deeply personal, spoke of his journey from harboring resentment to embracing understanding. With each measured syllable, he acknowledged the pain inflicted by old feuds and the newfound willingness to heal. Standing beside Elena, a silent strength was exchanged between them, symbolizing the melding of two lives that, until now, had been poised on opposite sides of a long-standing divide. The ceremony took on a delicate rhythm as successive speakers stepped up, elderly relatives recalling the past with tearful regret, and young voices promising to write a future free from inherited grudges. Every sentiment was layered with intricate histories of heated disagreements and small reconciliations, each memory a thread weaving the complex tapestry of their shared experience. As elder after elder spoke, the moment grew electric with the power of resilience. One relative, eyes gleaming with quiet determination, declared, "In forgiveness, we find the true meaning of family. Our bonds are not defined by the battles of our past, but by the love we nurture for one another in the present." His words hung in the air like a benediction, resonating with the crowd, as if each heart had finally been granted permission to mend. At the crescendo of the event, Elena and Adrian, now standing together in front of both families, found their gazes locking in an unspoken vow. Their relationship had evolved from contentious beginnings to one deeply rooted in mutual respect and shared ambition. In that delicate, timeless moment, they stepped closer until words gave way to a tender kiss, a gentle, affirming act that sealed their commitment not just to each another, but to the idea that love and understanding may indeed triumph over years of discord. As their lips met, a collective sigh of relief seemed to ripple through the assembled crowd, a silent acknowledgement that a personal reconciliation had become a beacon of unity for all. The public display of love was more than a mere romance on show. It was a powerful symbol that the cyclical nature of hatred and alienation was finally broken. The kiss was the culmination of countless hidden tears, whispered apologies, and moments of shared vulnerability. In that instant, Elena and Adrian were no longer representatives of opposing factions. They were harbingers of a future where divisions could dissolve, paving the way for unity that transcended lineage and history. Following the kiss, moments of quiet reflection ensued. Guests, who had come with hearts laden with memories of old grief, allowed themselves to dream of a future where familial bonds might be rediscovered amid newfound peace. Within the tradition of the ceremony, a final ritual was performed. Each family member was invited to light a candle from a common flame, a physical act of sharing hope. Elena watched as the tiny flames, warmed by the merger of two kindred histories, were passed hand to hand. This visual metaphor for the unification of their hearts and lives was a potent reminder that even the deepest wounds could be soothed by the simple heartfelt act of forgiveness. In the lingering moments of celebration, the echoes of sincere declarations and heartfelt whispers mingled with the soft strains of a pianoforte. Elena and Adrian walked away from the center of the gathering hand in hand, their steps calming the tremors that had rocked their inner worlds for too long. With their love now publicly sealed, both families began to envisage a horizon where past incompatibilities could be left behind, making way for a future anchored in respect, shared memory, and the belief that lasting peace might emerge from even the darkest of legacies. The ceremony, a delicate blend of remembrance, regret, and rebirth, had not only bridged historical divides, but had imbued each participant with a renewed commitment to building a more compassionate, united future. In the radiant glow of that transformative evening, every heart present felt, if only for a moment, that the future was indeed bright and filled with promise. Chapter 5. Embracing Change, Embracing Love. Under the soft glow of a waning afternoon light, Elena stood at the threshold of a new beginning. The cool breeze carried memories of past grievances, whispered secrets of strife and stubborn pride, and now, in their quiet interplay, echoed her own truth. Change was inevitable, and love could be reborn from discord. As she walked slowly down the familiar corridor of her childhood home, where once sharply divided voices had resounded, she now felt the gentle murmur of reconciliation beneath every stone and tear. In each step, she recounted how her heart had shifted from hostility to healing, accepting that the scarred remnants of old battles were the very maps leading her to this new, hopeful chapter. Her journey had been marked by a transformation so profound that even the smallest cracks in her past now glimmered with the promise of wisdom. There was a moment, crisp yet tender, when Elena found herself pausing before the antique mirror in the spacious living room. The reflection that stared back was not the same fierce woman who had once clung to grudges. Instead, the woman now bathed in the gentle luminescence of self-acceptance. A woman who had learned to honor every tear and every laugh, every confrontation that had ultimately carved the path to her transformation. That delicate evolution was mirrored in her evolving relationship with Adrian. Once, he had been her opponent in battles of ideology and personal belief. Now, he was the steadfast companion whose steady presence had soothed old wounds. The evening air was filled with a quiet anticipation as Elena met him on the veranda, where muted light from the setting sun danced over their faces. Their eyes met, each glance a silent conversation affirming that the conflicts of the past were culminating in newfound understanding. In that moment, no words were needed to speak the deep, unspoken gratitude for the journey they had both endured. A final meaningful kiss sealed a promise of unity that transcended past differences and ushered in an era of calm and enduring love. The families, long divided by unresolved grievances, now found common ground in the gentle transformation of those they once deemed adversaries. Over the months that followed bitter strife, conversations began with cautious hope, and dinners that once felt like formalities blossomed into genuine gatherings of kinship. In a quiet celebration held under a starlit sky, both families came together to honor the new bonds that emerged from ancient feuds. There was laughter where once suspicion reigned, and in that laughter resounded the acknowledgement that love had a way of healing even the deepest of wounds. These moments of peace were delicate yet resilient, bridging old doubts with the warmth of shared memories and commitments to move forward together. As the night deepened, Elena found herself reflecting on the subtle metamorphosis in her own heart. The twists and turns of the past were still there, etched in quiet lines around her eyes, and in the soft curves of her smile, but they were no longer markers of despair or defiance. Instead, they were traces of battles fought and lessons learned, stepping stones on a path toward a future where love triumphed over old enmities. In her contemplation, she recognized that embracing change was not a repudiation of the past, but a celebration of the strength it had forged within her. This acceptance became the foundation of her renewed identity, a harmonious blend of the resilient spirit of her former self and the tender openness that life's trials had cultivated. Adrian's presence beside her, a warm reassurance in the cool night, further cemented her belief that renewal was possible, even in the fractured remnants of what once was. They spoke softly, their words measured and reflective, about the importance of reconciling with not only external strife, but the internal battle that often pitted love against fear. Their conversation was a gentle reminder that true strength lay in vulnerability, the willingness to embrace not only personal growth, but also the unpredictable beauty inherent in forging connections with others, even those who had once opposed them so fiercely. Looking out over a horizon that promised both challenges and new opportunities, Elena felt a sense of peace settling over her, as if the soul of every past disappointment was finally transformed into the courage to hope. Every unresolved thread of anger and sorrow had been woven into the tapestry of her experience, creating a resilient narrative of empowerment and connection. With every heartbeat, she embraced the truth that change, however daunting, led to a deeper and more profound love. A love nurtured not in the absence of conflict, but in its aftermath, thanks to the willingness to see beauty in every scar. In that final embrace, before the night claimed the sky, Elena and Adrian sealed their bond with a kiss that resonated like a promise. It was a kiss not only of passion, but of understanding, of having weathered storms, and emerging together as beacons of mature, enduring love. In that moment, all conflicts were softened by time.